So we're reading from the Bhagavad-Gita as it is, chapter 18, text 17. Yasya nahankara bhavo buddhiyasya nalipyate advapi saimalokan nahanti nanabhadyate. One who's not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, though he kills men in this world, does not kill, nor is he bound by his actions. Everyone understood that? Did you understand? Can you hear?
Yes.
Can everyone hear?
Yes.
Okay, so let's repeat it. I just read a verse. Who can repeat the verse I just read without looking at your phone or the book? Chapter 18 in Bhagavad-Gita, text 17. One who is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, though he kills men in this world, does not kill, nor is he bound by his actions. So please repeat. One who's not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, though he kills men in this world, does not kill, nor is he bound by his actions. Purport. In this verse, the Lord informs Arjuna that the desire not to fight arises from false ego. Arjuna thought himself to be the doer of action, but he did not consider the supreme sanction within and without. One does not know that a supra sanction is there. Why should he act? But one who knows the instruments of work, himself as the worker, and the Supreme Lord as the supreme sanctioner, is perfect in doing everything. Such a person is never an illusion. Personal activity and responsibility arise from false ego and godlessness, or a lack of Krishna consciousness. Anyone who's acting in Krishna consciousness under the direction of the Super Soul or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though killing does not kill, nor is he ever affected by the reactions of such killing. When a soldier kills under the command of a superior officer, he is not subject to be judged. But if a soldier kills on his own personal account, then he is certainly judged by a court of law. So the text again. Yasya nahankriya bhavo buddhiyasya nalipyate hadvapi sahimalokan nahanti nanabhadyate. One who is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, though he kills men in this world, does not kill, nor is he bound by his actions. Bhagavad-Gita begins with a very simple philosophy. That is, Denos minata dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tata dahantra praptir viryas tatra namuyati. You know that verse? You'll learn it. As the embodied soul continually passes in a body, who goes from boyhood to youth to old age, so similarly the soul will pass to another body at the time of death. A self-realized soul is not bewildered by such changes. In other words, that verse is to help us use our intelligence, spiritual intelligence. Right now our spiritual intelligence is not very developed. Therefore, we hear something but we don't perceive it. The difference between advanced spiritual intelligence and just ordinary intelligence is that when we hear knowledge, we don't fully perceive it. We may even a little bit perceive it. Therefore, we hear that the body is changing, which is undoubtable, which is obvious. No one will deny that their body is changing. But we ourselves, the soul within the body who are experiencing these changes, we're still the same person. So the conclusion actually is that we're eternal. Unfortunately, we're an illusion. So we think we know so many things, but we don't know we're eternal. So really we don't know anything. Actually, the knowledge factor is minus. Not only we don't know anything, we know less than nothing. We're in the minus category. Because we think something to be real, which is not real. So we're super fools. We're not ordinary fools. We're vimudas. But we're very proud. I can recite so many verses. I can tell you so many things about Krishna. Who I am, I don't know. How I got here, I don't know. How to get out of here, I'm not really clear. But I'm so learned, I'm so great, I'm such a nice person, I'm worthy of so much respect, etc. So that means we're bewildered by ignorance. So Krishna progressively tells Arjuna what ignorance means. Naiva kinchit karomi ti yukta manyate tatvavit pashan shrivans prishan jagran ashnanga chan swapan swasan pralapan vishvijan grinan mishani mishanapi indriyar indriyarte shu vartanta iti daryan. That a person in the divine consciousness, so we can see whether we're or not, we're actually in the divine consciousness. So we see this way. Because we're hearing knowledge not just to get some intellectual understanding, we're hearing knowledge to get experience. And this experience is to perceive not only we're eternal, but we're not the doer of our activities. We're the desirer, and our desire is sensed by Krishna, just like one can understand the flavor of a flower by smelling it. And Krishna, according to what we deserve, he arranges the material nature in such a way as to fulfill desires that we deserve. We have some part to play, and an important part, that is the capacity to desire. But only when we come in contact with Guru, Sadhu, and Krishna, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, can we know how to properly desire. Otherwise, if we're not consciously desiring properly, the way Krishna wants us to desire, then we'll be forced to act under the false ego conception of life. And the result will not be transcendental. The result is we'll always be wondering, why am I not making progress? We're not making progress because we're not taking the time, the effort, to analyze what Krishna wants us to do through Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Because we're spiritually lazy, therefore we do so many things, even in terms of sadhana, and we don't really care what Krishna wants us to do. We don't really care what Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra want us to do. We're doing whatever we think we're supposed to do, but with not much concern whether or not Krishna is really satisfied by the quality of what I'm doing, by my consciousness. Maya will tell us so many reasons to be unconscious of Krishna. And if we're willing to be unconscious of Krishna, then that's the result we'll get. No matter how much sadhana we do, if we're not consciously trying to ascertain and put into practice what Krishna wants us to do and how he wants us to do it, then we remain on the same same level of material consciousness. Therefore, Krishna says, Naiva kinchit karomi ti. At no time are we actually doing anything. Yukta manyate tatvavit. So tatvavit, one who actually sees things properly. And how to see things properly? By actually being connected with Krishna. So it's not enough just to hear, it's a question of actually remembering. If we can't remember what we've heard, it's as good as not hearing, because we can't apply something we can't remember. if you walk away from this class and you don't remember anything that was in the class, then unless I told a real good joke, you were just wasting your time. That we have to remember something of what we've heard, something that we can actually perceive with our eyes in this world, at least. Something that makes sense to us, that's practically, can be practically applied. Like, for instance, chant Hare Krishna with attention. That we can remember. If that was the whole class is about chanting Hare Krishna with attention, and you walked away and chanted one round with attention, then this class would be successful. And it would be more successful if from now on you chanted your rounds with attention. Or if you actually became convinced that everyone you look at, you can look at your neighbor. Look at your neighbor. Everyone can look at their neighbor. You have a neighbor? Look at someone. That they're actually an eternal spiritual servant of Krishna. So when you look at your neighbor, is that what you remembered? That this is Krishna's eternal servant, and I'm Krishna's eternal servant, and therefore I'm the servant of Krishna's servant, and I should find out how to serve this particular soul. Is that our meditation when we look at the devotees? Where here's the devotee, you know, it looks like they didn't shave for 2 days. Look at his tilak. Looks like he put it on in his sleep. He chants like a frog. Maybe he's going to become a frog. What is our consciousness when we're dealing with the devotees? So if we remember that this is Krishna's eternal servant, and being the servant of Krishna's servants, I should look at someone and try to figure out how to serve them. That's called Krishna consciousness. And if we take shelter of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra in our effort to ascertain how to serve them, then Krishna may didami buddhi yogam tam. He may give us some intelligence, some remembrance, how to serve them. And if we don't do that, then we're just wandering in the illusory energy. We're not deepening our Krishna consciousness. As a matter of fact, by committing offenses against the devotees, we're just going to have to struggle in our rounds just to come back to our normal everyday illusion. So we're not just trying to chant Hare Krishna with attention, we're trying to avoid aparads. We're trying to see every soul, and especially the devotees, who we have the best opportunity to engage in loving exchanges. Just like someone chants, so we should listen. And the person who's chanting, he shouldn't think, well, I have such a wonderful voice, I'm in so much ecstasy, I don't have to listen to all these people out there in Maya as they chant. That means one is in the illusory energy. No, someone is chanting, and one should try to appreciate others chanting also, that they're also calling out to Srimati Radharani and Krishna. So try to perceive things in Krishna consciousness, and when we perceive things in Krishna consciousness, then we can actually act with conviction. Without conviction, there can be no determination to become steady in devotional service. Unless we hear sufficiently and perceive, assimilate the knowledge, and perceive what we've heard, then there is no question of becoming convinced that this is real and I should engage all my energies in this activity with full attention. Well, always been anxiety. Maybe I'm going to die, maybe people don't love me, maybe I'm rendering service, I'm not getting anything in return, I'm growing old, maybe I'll die from old age here. So much anxiety because we're not convinced, because we don't see things properly, because we don't act with conviction. And then we expect all kinds of mercy just bestowed upon us. That we walk around to the sannyasis or the senior devotees and say, give me your mercy. Well, actually, the mercy is to hear and try to perceive what we've heard. And when we can see what we've heard clearly enough, act with conviction And what will that conviction lead us to? Becoming more skillful in our loving exchanges with the devotees. If we're not becoming more skillful in our loving relationships with the devotees, then where's the question of bhakti? If we don't love Krishna more and offer more to his Sankirtan movement, more of our energy, if we don't offer our love to the devotees, our service to the devotees, how are we going to advance in bhakti? Who are we trying to love? If after chanting my rounds, am I going to become more attached to my pet dog? Is that my objective? Am I trying to become more attached to the loving service of the devotees and Krishna? And develop some feeling, at least some duty towards the innocent, to try to bring them to Krishna consciousness, somehow or another. And to give up this attachment to Facebook, to wandering around, looking at the monkey-like faces on Facebook, smiling at us like, orangutans and chimpanzees, and thinking, this is my feelings for the day. Oh, this is my feelings for the day. Who cares about our feelings for the day? Unless they're involved with feeling for Krishna. If Krishna is not there, then we're just wasting our time. Even we're eating prasadam. If we don't see prasadam as Krishna's mercy, and we see it as, something to fill our stomach with, that we're going to enjoy, and we don't remember Krishna, then we're in Maya, eating prasadam. It's an opportunity to appreciate Krishna's mercy more and to relish Krishna's association through tasting Krishna through prasadam. So if we become convinced and we actually develop skill in our loving relationships, then we can actually become instrumental to serve Srimati Radharani, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the Sankirtan movement. They're in love with everyone. Their only interest is to see everyone become happy by becoming Krishna conscious. So we want to get to meet them, we have to become just like them. And if we think we're already like them and we haven't met them, then we must be an illusion. Because it's not possible to be like Radha and Krishna and their associates and not get their intimate association. If you put an iron to the fire, then it gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and then gradually becomes just like fire. So wherever you touch the iron, it's going to act like fire. If it's not acting like fire, then it wasn't put into the fire. We may pretend that we're like fire, but actually if we're not going through the process properly, if we're not hearing with attention and assimilating the philosophy, so we actually see it with our eyes, and not only see it, feel it. Devotional service is not just an intellectual exercise, it's an experience. So we're not experiencing Krishna consciousness, then our hearts are like steel framed. That's all right. At least we should try to perceive, and then with some humility. If we're not feeling enthusiastic, we're not feeling convinced, then we have to pray to Krishna. That somehow or another I've fallen into this ocean of material existence. What's wrong? Am I puffed up? Am I thinking myself to be better than others? Am I intolerant of what others are doing? Am I offering all praise to myself and no praise to anyone else? What's the problem? Am I attached to followers? Am I attached to wealth? Do I want liberation? If we have these anarthas, then Maya covers our consciousness. So we should pray humbly that these are things that I don't want. I'd like to get rid of. I don't want to cultivate them. I shouldn't become happy when I'm getting more false prestige. When I'm getting more followers or more wealth or more of anything in the material world. I should offer everything as much as possible to Krishna and be unhappy. We should lament that we're in this miserable state of material existence, and we should hanker to become Krishna conscious, to actually develop some sincerity so that when we chant Hare Krishna, when we pray to Krishna, Krishna will become compassionate upon us. They'll actually ascertain our actual present situation and sincerely ask for Krishna's help, for the help of his devotees. So we can get, Krishna will have the opportunity to actually help us. If we think everything is going all right, I have enough to eat, I have money in the bank, I have a place to sleep, what more can I want? The Sunday feast is coming up, life will become good. No, we should actually be lamenting. Somehow or another I'm chanting Hare Krishna and I have no taste. Aparade guche, shudanami ruche. What is that next thing? Aparada guche, shudanami ruche. Bohabi ridaye sancha, kabi habibolo seidin amar. When will that day become? My offenses ceasing, taste for the name increasing. When in my heart will your mercy shine? When, oh when will that day be mine? So we should think like that. And maybe for one moment, Krishna is going to let us chant one name and we'll actually become happy. We'll experience Krishna's presence. And that will inspire us to go on, seeking after that higher taste. We should feel ourselves to be in great danger if we're not feeling a higher taste in Krishna consciousness, because we'll be liable to act according to the lower tastes. So we should pray sincerely, somehow or another, utilize our intelligence, let me figure out how to chant japa now so that I actually get some experience when I'm chanting Hare Krishna. Not just get my rounds done, but get some spiritual experience when I do it. When I worship the deities, when I take prasadam, when I associate with the devotees, when I hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad-Gita, we should want to get some experience from it. And if we don't, then we should lament. Oh Krishna, please help me. I'm so fallen. I've been engaged for so long in your service, and yet because of my offenses, I have no experience of you, and therefore I find myself in a very unfortunate position. So one is not motivated by false ego. So we take initiation in the Hare Krishna movement to give up the false ego. That's why we go through initiation. It's not meant to get free from our sinful reactions by throwing some grains in the fire. Swaha. Oh, I feel so good. Swaha. My poor spiritual master, he's turning black, but I feel good. That's not the purpose of initiation. It's to become convinced that from now on, I'm going to act as the servant of Krishna. And my spiritual master is going to teach me how to become a servant of Krishna's servants appropriately. For those who are on a higher level than I am, then my spiritual master is going to teach me how to hear from them, obtain their perspective on things, act with the same determination that they have, develop the same skill in loving relationships with Krishna and his devotees, with the innocent, and avoid the non-devotees. That my spiritual master is teaching me how to perceive every devotee who's superior in any way in this regard, how to take shelter of them and come to the same level that they are. And that such devotees, when they see such a spiritual master who's inspiring them to take shelter of more advanced devotees than they are, then they encourage such a devotee to take shelter of their spiritual master. Because the spiritual master is actually giving the proper teachings. And therefore, devotional service is expanding. And for those who are on the same level, the spiritual master teaches us by his example and instructions how to cooperate. If he can't cooperate with his own god brothers to serve Srila Prabhupada and the Sankirtan movement, then how are his followers going to learn? And if he does that, then his followers will learn how to cooperate with every devotee in the movement, whether they're initiated by their spiritual master or not. It's irrelevant. There's only one purpose of the Hare Krishna movement, to become Krishna conscious and to distribute that Krishna consciousness to others cooperatively. And for those who are innocent, who are just struggling to become Krishna conscious, then we try to respect them in our minds, but if they're not serious about Krishna consciousness, then we don't intimately associate with them. Then our own bhakti will develop. Then we won't be directed by our false ego. We'll remain fixed in the conception that I'm servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. And throughout the whole line, the teachings is the same. It is not that my spiritual master says one thing, someone else's spiritual master says something else, and Prabhupada's saying a third thing. That's not possible. If they're actually in the line of disciple succession coming from Krishna, because it's Krishna who is the original spiritual master, they all must be saying the same thing. And if they're not saying the same thing, then we have to use our intelligence and understand how to resolve the seeming contradictions. There's only one purpose of the Hare Krishna movement, that is to become conscious of Krishna. It's not to become a blind follower. Prabhupada says blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. One should not only hear submissively, but one should get a clear understanding through submission, service, and inquiry. So if some senior devotee is saying something which will not help me develop my devotional service, my knowledge, my perception of reality, my conviction, my expertise in loving exchanges with Krishna, the devotees, the innocent, avoiding the non-devotees, if I'm not coming to the platform of feeling and seeing the same thing as Krishna and Krishna's pure devotees, such as Prabhupada and our whole disciple succession, Srimati Radharani, they all have the same feeling and vision. If I'm not developing that, then I'm not developing Krishna consciousness. That's called aparad. We don't make advancement by performing aparad. If I think my spiritual master is instructing me to commit aparads, then I better inquire from my spiritual master if I've understood what he said. The last thing we should do is commit any kind of things that displease Srimati Radharani, because if we do that, then our devotional service will be destroyed. Then it's not possible to develop. Then we're acting under false ego. Then our intelligence is entangled. And therefore we kill will actually become responsible for whatever we do. We'll be responsible. It'll create another body and perhaps another opportunity for devotional service. But how many lifetimes do we want to go through before we take this Krishna consciousness seriously? So, I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
Maharaj, as we see, Krishna is having a plan for everyone. Everyone have a different plans for personal, whether how we should come to Krishna consciousness or living in Maya. So, what is actual duty of a devotee or of a person? What he should do? He should act according to the plan of Krishna, or he should act whimsically?
Well, what do you think? Are you going to advocate acting whimsically? Do you think someone should act whimsically?
No, I think that whatever we are doing, Krishna is giving arrangements, so I am following that one. But still, sometimes the mind is giving disturbance, so what we should be doing?
Don't listen to your mind. The mind's business is to disturb us, and our business is not to be disturbed by the mind. Matra sparshas tu kondiya, shitoshna sukudukada, agama paino nityas tam tatikshas vibharata. O best of the Bharatas, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and the disappearance in due course, are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception or sign of Bharata, and one should learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudram apapravishanti advat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashanti matnoti nakama kami. Person is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers going into an ocean which is always being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. So if our mind is full, if we hear about Krishna, we chant about Krishna, then our minds will be filled with Krishna. If we perceive Krishna, if we try to act with conviction for Krishna, we try to serve the devotees in Krishna and help the innocent and avoid the atheists, then our minds will be filled with thoughts about Krishna, and even there's some cause of disturbance, we won't be disturbed. Anything else? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. You said if we have problems, we pray to Krishna. Whatever I'm puffed up, I'm lacking. My question to you is, like we say I went for Mangal Aarti, or we all go for Mangal Aarti, and for half a minute or 1 minute I prayed in front of Radha or Krishna Balaram, whomsoever. But my standing over there for a whole half an hour in the temple in itself is already a prayer, is it not? I'm standing for them. I already mean that I'm impure and we know, and so I need to say 1 day passed, 1 month passed, years passed in case of senior devotees. So that's a lot of praying. So so Krishna, how is he reciprocating? I prayed, I'm standing there, is it not? Am I not here for devotion service or?
Well, your body's standing there. The question is where you are. Your body may be there, but it's where your consciousness goes. That's where you are. Otherwise, there are so many, well, I don't know nowadays, maybe there aren't any pigeons. There used to be pigeons coming by. There were so many ants enter into the temple room, maybe even a few rats once in a while. They maybe come every day. But they're not making very much spiritual advancement because they're not really, their body is there, but their consciousness isn't. So Krishna doesn't say just put your body there. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mama nusmara yudhyacha mayarpita mano buddhir mame vaishyati samshaya. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your mind and intelligence fixed on me and everything engaged in me, you'll attain to me without fail. So more important than where our body is, it's where our mind and intelligence are. We work with our mind and intelligence, not with our body. The body follows. So you may come, and Krishna sees your body, but I don't think Krishna takes so much pleasure in just looking at our dead material body. He wants to see what the soul is doing. Yes.
Yeah, I think Prabhu's question, answer just in context of what Prabhu asked. He said if you're in front of the Lord for half an hour and we are offering standard prayers, Mangalarti, Guru Vastra, we are offering that. And then he said you suggested that we could offer additional prayers to the Lord.
No, we should pay attention.
Yeah,
And we should know what we're saying.
Exactly. But just something that came to my mind. Prabhu's asking, do we need to offer separate prayers to the Lord?
Yes, we generally do.
Yeah, we generally do. So
But not during Mangalarti.
Exactly. So what came to my mind was the Nectar Devotion specifically states two particular things. Offering prayer, everybody knows that. Offering prayers and offering notable prayers. So we've already offered notable prayers. So I guess we can offer our prayers as well, as long as they're in line with Guru's dimensions.
Well, we should have perspective. When we sit down to chant japa, that we should have some perspective. We should be chanting and listening to our chanting and see what the quality of our chanting is and what the effect it's having on me. If it's not having very much effect and I don't like the quality of my chanting, we should change it. We should be perceptive of what's going on, not unconscious. We have to become conscious. Not that we spend the whole japa period offering prayers and then we don't have time to chant our japa. But we should chant japa and be perceptive of how we're chanting and then be prepared to change the quality of our chanting. Yes.
Thank you so much for the lovely class. About focus, as one gets a little older, at least for myself, my focus is breathing. I can't focus for a very long time. And although I've heard the lecture, the retention is very not as great as it used to be. So about focus and retention, can you say something that can help me?
One time Braj Bihari Prabhu went to the elderly Puri Maharaj, who was over 100 years old. And he said, Puri Maharaj, it's Braj Bihari. And Puri Maharaj said, I don't remember you. He said, I've become so old I can't remember anything. The only thing left is I can only remember Krishna. So, getting older and forgetting everything, at least we shouldn't forget Krishna. If we forget everything else, that's all right, but don't forget Krishna. As far as focusing, yes, there's prayers like that in the Nectar devotion. But if all we're doing is Krishna's service during the day, we have nothing else to remember but Krishna. And if we can't remember anything, then that's not possible. We're going to remember something, and if all during the day we're involved in Krishna's service, the only thing we will be able to remember is Krishna. And if all we can do is remember Krishna, there's no question of not focusing, because that's all we know. The gopis aren't trying to focus on Krishna because they love Krishna. They can't forget him, even if they try. So it's not a question of just mechanically trying to focus on Krishna. It's trying to give some love to Krishna, some favorable service to Krishna and Krishna's devotees. And then we'll naturally remember him. Krishna will appear before us, and we'll never be able to forget him. Yes.
Another question relates to the demons and the insect. And how do we recognize that? And we are confused on...
Yeah, give them a book. Ask them for a donation. If they don't give a donation, you can put them in one category. If they give a donation, you can put them in another category. If they say something favorably, then also they can get out of one category and go into the other. Yes. Him.
Thank you so much. It's an interesting topic that you've covered between intelligence and, if I'm not mistaken, or perhaps you know better, it's where Prabhupada said that you should not surrender your intelligence, but you should surrender by your intelligence. So I'm not sure if this was him or where it's from, but then my question in relation to this may come across as offensive, which I apologize, but you mentioned that if one comes across something between the various gurus within ISKCON that are seeming contradictions, we should try to have those resolved. My question then is, if you already have this mindset that it's a seeming contradiction, where it may well genuinely be a contradiction, then you're not going to have the intelligence to
Well,
question.
you have to see through the eyes of Scripture. And you see through the eyes of Scripture. There's only one philosophy. It's Krishna's philosophy. And everyone else is a representative of that philosophy. So if someone's saying something that Krishna didn't say, they're not a representative of the philosophy. They have to repeat what Krishna says through disciple succession. Now, we can't automatically jump to the conclusion because there's principles and there's details. So we have to learn what's the principle and what's the detail. So we can discriminate between what we think is a contradiction, what really is a contradiction.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. My question is, how can we recognize the envy factor in us every day, in our day-to-day life?
What
Because
it-
we are chanting every time and reading books, so it's very difficult to understand who I'm envious of Krishna.
Yeah, well, just look at a devotee. If you don't feel great love, you must be envious. Look at any devotee. If you don't feel love and want to serve that devotee, then you must be envious. Now, there may be different degrees of envy. It's not an absolute principle. But we have to recognize that if I don't have a service attitude towards Krishna or Krishna's devotees, then I must have a certain amount of envy. Idam tu te guyatama pravaksham anusuyave jnanam vijnanam sahitam rishgatva moshase shubhat. Because you're never envious of me, Arjuna, therefore I will reveal to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, by which, knowing which, you'll become free from all the material miseries. Yes?
And if there's lots of envy, then how much time will it take? Because so much goes unrecognized.
Well, it could take a moment, or it may not take, you may not, as it says in the Bhagavad-Gita, you could obtain divine life in one moment, or you may not obtain it after millions of years. It's only a question of understanding and accepting the fact that we're Krishna's servants of the servants of the servant, and applying it within our life. So, we try to apply that in our lives, we make a little progress, and Krishna will be very happy and reciprocate, and encourage us to make a little bit more progress, one step at a time. If you want to meet Narada Muni, you find out where his footprints are, and you follow them, and you keep on following them. Eventually you'll meet Narada Muni, one step at a time. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Bhagavad-Gita Ki Jai.